Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Darkstone Dossiers with your host, Anthony Darkstone.
Greetings and welcome and a very good evening. Buonasera a tutti. Bonsoir, buenas noches, bonne nuit. Why am I using all those languages? Well, it's evening time for all those people. And a very good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you are on the planet. The Darkstone Dossiers has and is and will be a production out of the oldest magical society in the world, the Society of American Magicians. Harry Houdini himself was president twice. He escaped the first time, but managed to find his way back in again. We even have a Houdini stamp, which we will talk about in the meet and greet chat, which we will have towards the end of the show, where you can put your questions to my guests. I'm sure you have tons of them, and we will talk about that. What is the Society of American Magicians? Well, I told you it's the oldest one in the world, but it is also a worldwide organization. Do you have to be an American to join? No. In the chat very shortly, we will put up the link to the Society of American Magicians website and tell you which button to click, and you can find out everything there is to know. I want to very, very briefly acknowledge a number of people from our International Assembly in no particular order. We have Elmo Huvela from Finland. We have from Texas, Gene Protas, Tommy from Singapore, John O'Riordan, who is from England, PJ from Texas. Welcome to all our International Assembly members. Delighted to have you. Two of my guests are members of the International Assembly, Serena Stone and J. Scott Berry. Kenton Nepper will be shortly joining us at the SAM. If he behaves himself tonight, we'll let him in. I also want to acknowledge really quickly, before we get into the show proper, our PR and press officer, Mr. Alan Fisher. Alan, as you may recall, some of you did a wonderful lecture for us not that long ago, and is also, as I mentioned, our press and PR officer, and has been beavering away very, very hard in the background, and will also be on our showcase cast for our forthcoming gala show on the 29th. I'd like to bring up, in fact, he's a member of our assembly, obviously, the president-elect of the entire Society of American Magicians, and from Canada, Mr. Rod Chow, who I'm sure would want to say a few words of welcome to you.
It's indeed an honor to be here, joining you from all parts of the world. I see so many people here. I'd like to give you welcome on behalf of the Society of American Magicians as president-elect. And I know you're going to enjoy this lecture and learn a lot, because mentoring is so important to all of us as magicians. And that wonderful video we saw earlier that J. Scott Berry put together, that the pieces there, I mean, the puzzle pieces, I mean, that says a lot, says it all almost. So I'm so looking forward to hear more about that. So enjoy, everyone.
And that's wonderful to have him with us. He turned over the baton as president just this July, a month ago, and was our president of the whole of the SAM. And I'm delighted to tell you he is now also the dean of our International Assembly. And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, a few words from Dr. Joel Zoritsky.
Thanks, Anthony. I am so pumped up to be here. I just drove up real quick from New York City just for this show, because I want to learn from these three masters. And I'm so happy you're all here to do this. So thanks for being here.
And that is the president of the Society of American Magicians. And it would be very remiss of me if I didn't acknowledge him and ask him to say a few words of greeting. Ladies and gentlemen, most illustrious, Mr. Tom Gentile.
It's really a privilege to learn from other people who have walked those journeys before me. And I appreciate you sharing your wisdom and experience and stories.
Let's get on with the show. Okay, mentoring. Before I get to my guests, I just want to say a few words. What exactly is this mentoring that we all talk about? Is it a guide? Is it a coach? Is it a teacher? Is it someone who shows you how to do a double lift? Well, the short answer is, it could be. but it's not necessarily just that. For example, you've seen come up on the screen here, Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom, amongst other things. Now, why is she important to mentoring? Some of you will recall, if you were paying attention in your history classes, the Trojan Wars. You know, the big wooden horse? The gentleman called Odyssey, who the Romans referred to as Ulysses, went off for about 10 years, and he got another gentleman whose name was Mentor. And he said, will you look after my son Telemachus and, mentor him and teach him and all those kind of things? To which this gentleman called, that was his name, Mentor, said, oh yes, very much so, my liege, my king, I would be very happy to do that. Without putting too fine a point on it, he was absolutely useless at it. Totally useless, which left the young man in a quandary. Athena, the goddess of wisdom, looked down upon this and went, no, we can't do this. Sometime in the future, Homer is going to write the Odyssey. We want it to read well. So she pretty much threw out this guy called Mentor and took his place. Now, interestingly enough, the Romans referred to her as Minerva. So what are we going to be doing tonight? We want to look at mentoring in general, and then more specifically as to how it applies to magic. I have mentors. I've had mentors, people like Marco M., Pat Page, Ken Brook, Ali Bongo, and the list goes on. So it's very important. Think like this. If you're making a movie, there's a director, there's a producer, there's a voice coach, there's a lighting man, there's a cameraman, there's a sound man, there are dialogue coaches. How does this apply to magic? Is it just someone who says, hey, I'm very experienced, I've been in the business for X number of years, and I can show you how to do a double lip? Well, yeah, kind of interesting, but there's a little bit more to that. A mentor, in words of very few syllables, shows you where to look, but doesn't necessarily tell you what to see. So whatever age you are, and at my age, and I've been on this planet for almost 8 decades, 7.5, I still have directors, I still have mentors that I go to, ask questions, get evaluations objectively. Because if you don't do that, you cannot seek improvement. If you're not seeking improvement, what on earth are you doing in a performing art, especially one that is so demanding as ours? Without much further ado, and not in any particular order, let me now take you immediately to my first guest, Serena Stone. Hi, Serena. How you doing?
Doing well, Anthony. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Thanks very much. I'm so glad that you gave the time to come in here and to share some of your experiences. I know you were very, very, very keen on mentoring for a number of reasons. You've written a book that kind of almost covers that. So would you just care to say probably 2 or 3 sentences what mentoring means to you?
Well, I guess to wrap it up in 2 or 3 sentences, I would look at mentoring as raising people to a higher level, lifting others higher. That's your mentoring. And when I'm mentoring, my focus is to make it so they no longer need me.
Excellent. Well said. Let me now take you to my second guest of this evening, and that is, of course, Mr. Kenton Nepper.
Hello. Good to see everyone. For me, I grew up with many mentors at a very early age. I continued to have them throughout my entire career, and to this day, still have mentors. For me, a mentor is not somebody who teaches you what to do the way they did it so that you can be like them. A mentor educates, pulls out of you the wonder, the beauty, the amazing uniqueness of you, and brings that out into your performance. So for me, that's what a mentor does. That's what my mentors have always done. And I'm a very big proponent of that.
My third guest, I've known him for, more years than he and I care to remember, for over 20 years. I've described him in articles I've written about him in the Magic Circle and elsewhere as a man who knows no boundaries. He goes beyond them. For tonight, I would simply like to call him the tour de force. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. J. Scott Berry.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It's my pleasure to be here. I just want to say, pass that on to thank you to Scott and to Tommy, who are also running shotgun on this. It always takes a team. It's great to see you, Tom, most illustrious, Kenton and Serena. Of course, it's my pleasure to be with you, Joel, Rod, everyone who's come in. Thank you very much for joining us on this. Now, to answer your question, Anthony, I'll echo exactly what Serena and Kenton said. Exactly. I mean, they both kind of aced it, two very clear sides of it. And to me, we are entering this golden age of mentoring, partly because of the technology. It's taking the best of a difficult situation. And I mean, what we're doing right now, this is it. We're all on a live stream from around the world, and we're learning. And this, in many ways, is the perfect example of this age we're entering. And I've got a dozen students very active right now, ranging from beginners to experts, from FISM hopefuls, FISM contenders right across the way to wanting to join and perform at the Magic Castle. And it's an incredible opportunity to pass on the lineage of this art. And we are custodians of this phenomenal, incredible art. And we are standing on the shoulders of giants. So we are bound by honor to see farther, but then to pass that vision on to the ones we are teaching and assisting.
Thank you, Jay. I think there's a number of things that pretty much everybody here's picked up from my three guests in their very brief analysis to begin with. It is indeed a matter of honor. Because if you've come through it and you've fought your battles and you've done all the things you're supposed to have done, and indeed have done, then yes, you're honor bound to pass those skills on. As Kenton rightly pointed out, is it a matter of sitting somebody down and going, hey, this is what you do, this is how you do it, and this is what I want you to do? No. As Kenton aptly said, it's studying that student. Or mentee. I prefer the word mentee because you don't necessarily have to be a student. Just be a mentee, one that's being mentored. Looking at that person, analyzing it, then he makes an evaluation. But I remember one that about 20 years ago, I did something and it was all kind of like, whatever. And my particular mentor turned to me and went, nah, in your head, you think you're moving like a 20-year-old. But actually you're moving like a 50-year-old. We're talking kinesics. This is what a mentor does. My take, every evaluation you make of yourself is subjective. It's like the old Einstein quote, you can't just roll and drive a car at the same time because one of those things is going to suffer. And that's what you need, somebody that you trust. Is an experienced performer necessarily the best mentor? I would argue, not necessarily. So we had these three people together, and I am delighted, joyous, pick your own adjective, that I managed to actually anchor all three of them down at one time. You have no idea with what they've got going on and their own students, etc. And I'm immensely grateful to them, as indeed on behalf of everybody in the SAM, that they took the time to come and sit with us for an hour and a bit and share some of what they have learned, what they may well be able to impart to you. Going to Serena, who made this excellent point, to get that good that you can then step away and say, yeah, there it is. You're no longer my prodigy, but you will always remain my mentee. I remember one thing, and here's the great secret of a mentor. Very often, you have no idea you are being mentored. Let's bring up all three on the screen if we can. Kenton, would you like to go first?
Certainly. Well, mentoring, let me just say, when I started my first paid show, I was 8 years old. For some of it, that's kind of common. We started pretty young. It's a bug that bit us, and we got on it. But I was very fortunate, even though I grew up in a small town, to have had well-known people in the area that were on local television and that toured around the country, who took me under their wing. And I had to pay them, and I had to work for them, and I had to do all sorts of things. But that was part of the process. And because of that helped me connect to other people who later I became students of, and it really just kind of snowballed from there. So for me, without having those inputs, I would not be known the way I'm known. I started at a very young age. Sure, I could have started 10 years ago. But if I had still had those mentors, it would have made the difference. So it's not about when you start magic or mentalism. It really comes down to if you have a good enough team to help you, you can advance greatly. I learned from, I'll give you a quick background. I learned from, I was on a 2.5-hour gospel magic show. I was on a burlesque comedy show. I was on a mentalism show, a 2-hour hip show, and doing close-up, all when I was in my teens, and still went to school. So, but those were my mentors. And then later there was a guy named John Mendoza, who was one of the big card techie close-up guys. And he lived in my state at the time. And one of my teachers said, Mr. Mendoza is willing to take you on perhaps as a student, but there's a catch, you have to audition. And then here's how much it will cost you, which was quite a bit of money back then. And I said, okay, well, what do I need to do? And he said, well, you'll get a call. So I got a phone call, and it was, Mr. Mendoza will come down to visit with you and see what you do on Saturday, the whatever. And I went, okay, but what do I need to do? And the message was everything, click. And that was it. So I'm thinking, wait a minute, I have all my illusions, I have doves, I have a rabbit, I have close-up, they went, yeah. So that was my audition. John came down to my house in my parents' basement. I was there, and I would start doing close-up, and he'd go, okay, that's enough of that. And then it would be like, okay, now do something that's part of your stand-up. Okay, that's enough. I've had enough of that. And that was the drill for hours. And then in a week, I found out I made it. So as long as I could cough up the money, which fortunately my parents could help me too, that's how I spent 3 days a week going to Mendoza's house, which was an 1.5-hour drive, and staying with him at his house for years. But because of that, I met a lot of friends, and that boosted me to the next level. So when JC Wagner came to live with us, once I moved in Phoenix, I was able to hang out with JC, and we would stay up till 3 a.m. working on chops because I had that background. Had I moved in with JC or JC moved in with us for a while, if I didn't have chops, it wouldn't have mattered. We wouldn't have been pals. So every single teacher taught me a little bit of something. And that's what you get from a good teacher, is one teacher may teach you, well, here's the ins and outs on a deep level psychologically of who you are. Another teacher will say, hey, you didn't know anything about lighting design. Let me show you about that. Another teacher will say, oh my God, your blocking's horrible. Great. Every one of those teachers are very important. So the only thing I would say, in my experience, I was cautious of is I had teachers who were experts in certain areas. They were well known around the world for doing certain things. They were not jack of all trades people. They were very good at certain things. And those are the things I learned from those teachers. If I wanted to learn something else, I had to go to a different teacher to learn that. And I think that that's probably the best approach. Because you wouldn't go to a close-up guy to say, tell me how to do stage illusions. And you wouldn't go to a bartender, to find out how to get sober, probably, right? So you have to pick your right teachers for what you're trying to accomplish. And I think that's important. I also think that the whole mentor thing, people get a little frightened thinking, oh my God, these are people who are names, J. Scott Perry, Serena Stone, oh my Kenton, oh my God, I don't want to, they'll yell at me and stuff. People have all these crazy ideas. And the fact of the matter is, what we really want to do is help you just be insanely great at whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter what you want to do to us so much as we want you to be great and be unique and do that. And that's what we care about helping people be. So I promise we don't bite, that we really do want to help our mentees become wonderfully great at whatever it is they want to do. And that is our job. But all of us have pretty full schedules. And so getting into having students and mentees, kind of depends on our availability. So keep that in mind too. we have a lot of things that we juggle at once. I will tell you that.
Indeed. Well, I think a couple of the words that have sprung out to me, and I'm pretty certain to everybody else watching. One in particular is connections. A good mentor will help you make the right connections. What he's going to do is connect you. If you were listening very closely, which I hope you were, what Kenton was saying, he mentioned different people connected with this person, that person connected. Somebody said to him, you got a call from John Mendoza. Be ready. I always have a little philosophy, which is always be in the right place. Because when the right time comes, you're ready. You're ready. In the right place, mentally, physically, knowing your stuff. That's the right place. When someone calls you and says, can you do that? Yeah. The right time has arrived.
So to that end, I will say very quickly, when I was on tour with John, we were in West Virginia, and we ran into a guy who was at a meeting, at a club meeting, and John and I were lecturing, and this guy came up. He had drawn some illustrations, and he had some ideas for a couple tricks. And he gave them to John and said, hey, will you look at these? Right. And John went, yeah, sure. We got in the car later because we were on the road, and he looked at it and he goes, the kid's really got some good ideas, but he's living in West Virginia. I don't know. I mean, it's worse than being in Iowa right now. I don't know what he's going to do. And if he thinks drawing everything's going to work, oh my God, good luck to him trying to do a whole book, but let's get in touch with that kid later. So about a month or so later, he calls the kid. His name, after a while, John and a bunch of other people kind of took to him. His name was, what was it? It started with it was common Michael, what was it? Amar or something like that. And, Michael will tell you there were times where I had a van in the Midwest and I picked him up at the airport and opened up, and a lot of raisins dropped out of the van because I had bunnies in the back, and Michael and I knew each other when we both had hair. So, you never know what those connections are going to be. Because as long as you're in it and you have teachers, you're going to bump into lots of other people that are important. Jay and I met because, of mutual friends and teachers. This is how it works. The only reason it ever happens that we get in tight with people is because you're in with somebody. So having a teacher is a wonderful way of doing that.
Well, I think, a lot of folks here and in the general world of magic have their particular magic clubs or whatever, and they're going to talk to slightly more experienced people. And that is a good thing, but it is not necessarily mentoring, because a mentor is a particular kind of individual, be it magic or otherwise, has not only got the experience, but has a deep understanding of a wider scope. For example, one of your mentors, in fact, one of mine, I'm not going to name him, nobody will know who he is, was a clinical psychologist. And he changed my entire attitude to the way I present my performances. I have another one who's a member of our assembly. I can tell you her name, Christina Husted from Norway. She does a card on sword. Her mentor turned to her and said, go and take fencing lessons. So she took fencing lessons for 6 months. Her mentor couldn't teach her how to fence, but he was smart enough to tell her to go take fencing lessons. When you watch her wield that sword, that card appearing on the sword is no longer just an effect. It's a performance, just that little thing. Let me kind of scoot over to Serena, because you have another perspective, because you're doing a lot of close-up at a bar, or have done for a long time. So care to share some of your experiences at the bar, some of your mentees and so on, Serena?
Sure. I was going to say no, but I'm saying sure.
Oh, okay.
When I was, before I do that, I just want to clear the air here. I'm getting a sense that there's something going on with the people watching and everything, and it has to do with me, and it has to do with something about the way I'm presenting myself. And instead of just ignoring it, so it's on your mind, I want to make it clear so you can focus on the things that I'm saying. And this isn't easy for me, so let me go ahead and say it. This is not my real hair color. Okay, I feel so much better now. So, as far as working a magic bar, you really have to be ready for anything. Kids down low looking up, and you forget about that angle, and them being the kind that don't hold back, drunks coming up and grabbing the cards out of your hand when you're in the middle of a triple shuffle where you have to keep track of 4 cards. So it's a matter that becomes a matter of audience control. And in a bar, the best way I've learned to do that is just yell at them. Or not. It really has to do with managing what you're doing, having the experience of doing it over and over, having a deep knowledge of your magical effects, a deep ability to take an effect, stop in the middle of it, figure out what you have to do to deal with the situation going on, and then come back to the magic trick or decide to switch over. You have to basically be working on your feet more than normal as far as sitting at a table with a group of people around you or on stage where you have that separation. With doing magic, it's serve a couple of drinks, do some magic, serve a couple of drinks, do some magic. So it's a real balancing act doing that. And as far as me getting involved with mentors, it wasn't until I was like 25 or 26 after I got out of the military that I actually had my first magic mentors. I had life mentors. I had plenty of teachers, and teachers are not necessarily mentors. I had mentors in life and mentors, well, mostly mentors in life before I met my magic mentors. And when I got out of the Air Force, I went to Hollywood, and I was mostly getting into doing comedy there. I was doing stand-up comedy, and Harry Anderson was a big influence on me. And I got to meet him at the Magic Castle and talk with him, and we tried to figure out whether or not himself and his first wife and I were related because we had the same last name, and it wasn't Stone. So when I was at the Magic Castle, my first mentor was actually Martin Nash, and him and I would sit at the bar, and I was kind of thinking that my payment to him was like buying him a drink every once in a while. But thinking back, he bought me drinks too. So I think the payment was him helping me out and getting me going more, and the time we spent together, because when we were together, we had a lot of fun. I'm going to call the professor another one of my mentors. Oftentimes when I walked into the downstairs lobby through the secret passage coming into the Magic Castle, there would be the professor sitting on the divan to my left, and many times he would be sleeping. At that time, the Magic Castle was his house. That's where he was living.
Yeah.
And he'd come down to the basement and hang out while people came in. Well, one of these times when I walked up to, and the thing with the professor was, all I ever saw the professor do in person for that year and a half I was there was play 21. And that was his magic trick where he never lost. And he would just do it over and over with people. He'd have a group of people, I'd be sitting there for an hour, and that's all he's doing. So he found his one magic trick he could do the rest of his life. And I believe he had said that, and maybe Eugene had said that, or someone else. But okay, so here it is. Here's how the professor mentored me. I walked in one day, and there he was on the divan sleeping. And I was looking at him, and I just thought, I can't believe it. I'm standing right here in front of the professor. He knows me. He calls me by name. And it wasn't Serena. And he opened up his eyes, and he went, "Holy crap!" Like he would. And he said, I'm really sorry. But I opened my eyes and I looked at you, and I thought Harry Houdini had come because I had died, and he was coming to take me away. And he pointed at me and he said, "You should do a one-man act as Houdini." So I did pursue that. I performed as Houdini. I performed as Houdini a half a block from where he grew up in Appleton, in front of 2,000 people, doing the chair tie escape in the middle of the street. And I would have never done that unless I was tasked to do it by the professor. As I went along, through my other mentors that I met, and actually through one of my students who has become one of my teachers, he told me, he said, you should stop being someone else and you should be yourself. He didn't know that was Serena, though. And that's how I became Serena. And now what I'm doing is I'm passing on what I've learned and helping mentor my mentees or my proteges. I have two I stay very close in contact with. One owns a magic shop in Vancouver, British Columbia. And the other was the senior magician at the Safe House. And now what he's done is he's moving on more into doing spiritual things, helping people by counseling them in a spiritual manner. And I have expertise in that area also, so I'm still able to help him. But he told me, and I'm going to finish on this, he told me more than being his mentor in magic, I was more his mentor in life. And even though we're doing this in helping people with the magic, we're also helping people be able to have a better life in many ways. And that's one of the things that I love about being mentoring, lift others higher.
Absolutely. All of this helps the magic. And there is a story that's told in Taoist teachings. A guy falls into a hole and everybody ignores him and he's screaming. And the monk passes by and he says, "Sir, you okay?" And the guy kind of looks up and goes, "No, I'm not. I'm in a hole. Can you help me out?" And the monk goes, "Yeah, sure." So the monk gets off his sash or whatever, drops it in there, pulls the guy out. And the guy's looking out, "Wow, thank you so much." And, "Yeah, I don't know how to thank you." And it is all. And the monk says, "Well, there's a small payment." "What?" "Well, I helped you out. There's a little payment here." "Oh, okay. Thank you. You saved my life. What do you want? How much?" The monk said, "Well, here, see, it works like this. The payment is you got to promise me in your entire life, you will help just 10 people. It could be anything from, taking a bird and putting it back in its nest to helping an old lady across the street or something very huge and dramatic. But it's got to be 10 people." I went, "That's it? Yeah, that's it." And, "Well, I can do that." The monk said, "Oh, wait a minute. There's a little addendum to that." The guy goes, "Oh, okay, what's the catch?" He said, "Well, the catch is not really a catch. Here's the deal. Every time you help somebody, you have to extract from them the same promise I'm extracting from you. They've got to help another 10. I went, "Oh, wow, that's kind of very cool. I don't know how to thank you. Thank you so much." To which the monk replied, "Well, actually, thank you. Because you see, you happen to be one of my 10. So the points that you both were making just now is it's honoring each other, the mentee and the mentor. It's not just learning someone teaching you the double lift or, I got a gig on Saturday. What effect should I do? It's a little bit more than that. And as Kenton said, you have to kind of be worthy almost to go up to the three of my guests. And I say that without any hesitancy, because they're not going to take on anybody who, well, let's use an old-fashioned cliche, shall we, didn't cut the mustard in the first place. They spot that special something. Is it an exchange like the monk? You are investing in yourself. Now, obviously, I haven't left him for last. It's just the way the cards or the dice roll. But I want to go to Jay, because I want him to elaborate on some of the things he's doing in the future. And basically, he's already got mentors. Why don't I just let Jay elaborate and share some of Jay's thinking and philosophy on mentoring?
Thank you, Anthony. And again, thank you for Serena and Kenton, both very valuable information. Look, I grew up in magic, music, and theater, and that gave me a real unique, strong foundation that I've built upon to this day. And I can mention a dozen people easily who were my mentors, either actively, directively, or inactively in some small capacity. But each one of them was instrumental in the simple fact that I'm here right now. You can look back on your life journey and say, had I not met Johnny Thompson when I was 16 years old in Reno, And he took me under his wing. He was so gracious, he and Pam, to where he was like a father to me. So a true mentor. He directed me. He said, talk to me about my show, my act, asked me all the right questions. It's all about saying, well, tell me this. And then flat out, he was the one that directed me to move to Los Angeles. He said, if you want to pursue this, you should be a junior member at the Magic Castle. And that set my entire life path on its way. I mean, I often go back in my mind to that point and think, if I hadn't contacted him, where would I be? It's such a different possible path. And musically, it was definitely Alan Parsons, another one of the absolute great living legends of music, where I met him working at Hollywood Magic, which I wouldn't have gotten to if it weren't for Johnny Thompson. And so I worked with Alan Parsons over the years and ended up designing stage stuff with him. I got into recording sessions at the Abbey Road studios and really got a sense of, walking in and understanding all the aspects of professional recording. So I was able to soak all that up. And then you've got the Patrick Pages and the ones who I looked up to, and the Richard Rosses and the Channing Pollocks, who I spent so much time with Channing. And again, this idea of the golden age. I had to drive from Los Angeles up to just south of San Francisco to see Channing. It's like Kenton was saying, you had to get to the mentor. If you wanted to learn under someone, and it was not possible other than to make that drive repeatedly. And I would often book shows up in San Francisco or the area just so I could spend a weekend with Channing. So that's all the giants. I always come back to this idea that we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And without that, we wouldn't be here. And the true heart for me of mentoring is understanding the responsibility to pass that on. And with the foundation I've gotten, I've been able to bring in a number of very talented mentees. I'll actually call a few out by name just as an example, because you mentioned the show. Austin Moody came to me about a year ago, contacted me just over a year ago. And I'll contrast him right now with two people. Two people came to me. I gave the same advice. I said, here's what you want to do, this and that. One of them went off and spent their money on a high-priced electronic effect and I think a small illusion, and that was it. They spent pretty much the same amount of money that Austin has spent with me for over a year of training. Now, the first one has gotten nowhere, as far as I can tell. Is exactly basically back where they were. The illusion is collecting dust in the garage and the electronic trick is broken. So that point of decision where Austin, we jumped in right away. We started doing weekly training sessions. And to me, my idea is you meet the talent where they're at. It's like it doesn't matter where you are on the ladder. What matters is reaching for the next rung. And it's a personal relationship. It's a building. It's a coaching. It's challenging. You say, look, we got to get a goal. We have to have a challenge. We got to get to that next step. It involves character design, costume design, performance. I'm really emphasize with everyone building their own strengths, and building, especially with Austin and a few others, is developing signature routines. And this goes back to, as Serena said, with Di Vernon. Di Vernon was this amazing, powerful, cranky old energy when I met him. But what he said was so profound. You know, this idea, you don't need to learn 1,000 tricks. Learn 3 that are good. I mean, he was the one who set me in motion to learn and really master the ring and ribbon. And that became my first signature piece to what I'm still known for. So I owe that to Di Vernon. And with Austin now, we're a year of taking him from a very talented, the talent was there, and it's just nurturing it and building it to where now he's just on the verge of going pro. He's going to be in, Anthony, he's going to be in the star as one of the stars on the upcoming SAM Gala Show, International SAM Gala Show. And he's just on the verge of signing a residency with a local theater. So from it took a year, and it's taken, we're up basically 50 sessions we're up to right now, and each one has been an incremental step up, 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 and the brainstorming and all the aspects to continue to pass everything I've got. I'll draw every bit of experience I've got from the graphics, the website design, the music, the scores, everything, to pour that into him, because I know that he will carry it on. And so to me, he's a very good example of that. And there's two others that I'll mention who I know are here. One is Tom Illusions out of Singapore. Now, Tommy came to me, we connected about 9 months ago. Now, he was already a very talented professional. So he was already a working professional. But as you said at the beginning, no matter where you are, you can always get a director, someone to help you, someone to build on. And with Tommy, one of his dreams was to open a magic school in Singapore. And I had that's been one of my dreams as well. And so we've worked together, we've developed, again, routines. He's going to be on one of the upcoming gala shows as well. He'll be on my gala show at the end of September. But the Academy of Illusions that's just opened up is a direct result of both my dream and his dream, but he was the catalyst, the working with him. And that kind of goes along this idea of that when the master is ready, the student will appear, but when the student is ready, the master appears. So it's that both finding that point in time where you're able to come together and build in a state of synergy. And then the third one I'll mention is Rod, who is the president-elect, Rod Chow. Now, I've known Rod, you and I have known each other for 40, 30, I don't know. I used to go, again, the funny thing is I mentioned I met you on one of my trips to stop by. I did a tour from Los Angeles all the way up the coast of Vancouver. I performed there. We had a great time. And that was one of the trips I stopped both times on the way back to spend time with Channing. Now, Rod has this incredible act that he had already won the second place, I believe, at the IBM. So the act is very well developed, but he wants to take it to the next level. And now he's counting down to FISM. So we are in very intensive training of fine-tuning every single aspect. So each week we're getting together and we're talking fine-tuning the script, fine-tuning the different aspects, each single effect, having competed at FISM and having headlined and performed at FISM, and I've been judge at a number of conventions. I'm able to see it and work with him from all of those points, as well as a performance coach. To say it's a psychological training, because FISM is it's a lot of pressure. And so I have incredible high hopes for Rod, because he's a contender. We've brought him over 9 sessions now, really from a hopeful to an absolute contender for the upcoming FISM. So these are all really good examples of what's happening right now in this golden age of mentoring. And as you said, we're opening up a virtual magic academy and bringing in top professors from around the world, and just building on this momentum to give back to the art, to give everything we can, pour our heart and soul into this continuum of magic to keep it alive, keep it thriving.
Thank you, Jay. I mean, to that, I will simply add, I mean, he's actually going to be the director on the gala show at the end of this month. Then he has the other gala show with his students at the end of September, and he will go into a little bit more of that. Why are we doing all that? Why does somebody get into magic? Anybody? You say, well, you know what, Anthony, I'm not really a pro, and I don't really want to do this and whatever. I'm just quite happy doing such and such, and walking up to a table and doing a couple of close-up effects. Fine. How can you improve it? What? How can you improve it? Yeah, but it's good. People clap. Yeah. How much you getting paid? What? How much you getting paid? I'm not a professional. You spend money on magic, don't you? And on gas, going from A to B to the gig. Oh, yeah. You making any money? Well, I think I'm lucky if I break even. So, well, then you don't really understand show business, that it's 2 words. A mentor will teach you about the business. So it's those other aspects that a mentor will bring to you. A good mentor will tell you, hey, I've got this gig on TV. A good mentor, go to your mentor. Go and talk to your mentor. Your mentor will say, fine, what are you doing? This, how many minutes have you got? Well, they've given me 6 minutes. Well, you better damn well make sure that you're finished at 5:58. Nobody sat, nobody analyzed, nobody looked at. Talk to people who know about TV, who know how to work a stage. Audience management. The best place to learn audience management is to do what Serena does. She's just standing at a friggin' bar. If you learn audience management at a bar with people coming in and other people coming back in again the next night and going, hey, show them that thing where the coin went in the bottle. Well, you can't just go, well, I did that last. No, you can't. Your job is there. You're getting paid to do that. So you find some way of doing it. So you do it differently. You don't get the coin. You find some way. You use the bottle cap, some such thing. Yes. Or you find some excuse and do something else. How are you going to know all that? How do I know all this to talk about it? I learned it. How does Serena know about it? Or Kenton or Jay? They learned it. He mentioned some wonderful names, in fact, from, Diverne, the professor, Pat Page, etc. I mean, we know these people. I hate to use this word, it's so unfashionable nowadays, but it's important. We venerated them because we understood what they were. Earlier on, I made reference to Anthony Darkstone, Darkstone, for those of you who may not know, is actually not something I picked out of thin air. It was my maternal grandfather's name. But I never thought of it. Eugene did. Dear Eugene Berger. He said, you're older, you're looking different, whatever. This is what you need to do. And I went, really? Oh, okay. And I was 50 years old at the time. One quick anecdote, and I want to turn it back to my guests. Back in the day, 50-something years ago, I went up to Ken Brooke, a name that some may know if you're in England. I mean, I know Jonah Ryden and other people in England will know this name. And I did something for him. And he just looked at me and said, get out. What? Get out. And, with a few choice Anglo-Saxon words for copulation before it. Yeah? Which was get the Anglo-Saxon word for copulation out. I'm 20-something, and I'm kind of going, stupid old man, what the hell does he know? Stoned off. Somewhere the gods smiled on me, and I stopped halfway down the stairs. A long staircase. Oh, wait. I've learned this in martial arts. There's a reason for this. I went back up and tapped on the door, and this gruff voice goes, and I went and I said, what do you want? I came to apologize. What? So I came to apologize. Why? Show me that again. So I did. And I thought, yeah, got it now. Great, done it. Wonderful. All the arrogance of a 20-year-old, 22-year-old, or whatever I was at that. And he looked at me and he went, don't show me an effing trick. Entertain me. I'm 74, and I have never, ever forgotten that any time I put my boots and tux on or whatever clothes I have to wear before that curtain opens. That's the one thing that goes through my head all the time. Just that one phrase. Don't show them an effing trick. Entertain them, Anthony. So basically, sorry, I didn't want to go into personal anecdotes, but I think it makes a good point, if I may, because of what we're doing. And this is why I feel so passionate about mentoring. And my only way that I can share it was, of course, yes, I'll be happy to mentor people who want to talk to me, etc. However, what I can do is to bring through the SAM, the Darkstone Dossiers, and bring 3 people that I personally and professionally admire, that can add so much more to you. That you go, well, I don't need a mentor. Well, I'll come back again. Sitting in P.F. Chang's, there was nothing in my mind said I need to change my mind on my name. Nothing. Until Eugene said that. Same with Serena. She never went, oh, well, you know what? I'll go and do a performance now as Houdini. That's what I'll do. No, it took a sleepy old curmudgeon to sort of half wake up and go, holy crap. Oh, you're real. You're not really a spirit. Why don't you go and do Houdini? Just that one phrase. Tell me honestly, or ask yourself honestly this question. How much is it worth? The phrase that Ken Brooke told me. No relation, by the way. He had an E on the end of his name. And how much is it worth? Some half-awake curmudgeon, because that's what he was. To be honest, he was. saying that to you. Just how much is that worth in real financial terms or in terms of creating your inner chi or ki as a performer? Priceless would be my answer. So today is not so much about, well, we're going to teach you to do this, and points 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is what we're doing as a mentor is going to do that. No, that's learning to play scales. That's learning to play scales on an instrument. A mentor's not going to teach you how to spell. A mentor's going to take you on when you've understood what the dictionary and possibly the thesaurus does. Then they can cut to the chase and go, boom, you've got the talent. Does it work in other areas of the performance arts? Yes, it does. Every movie, dancer, whatever you want, musician in the performance arts, somebody somewhere has looked at that and went, you've got what it takes. Let's throw out all the crap you're doing, and I will tell you what effects you should be doing. That's a mentor. If you're a smart mentee and not the arrogant SOB I was back 50 years ago, you'll stop. And this is what happens with true, everybody and the dog has a karate school and will teach you martial arts. Great. It's up to them, nothing to do with me. But a true master will turn you away. Happened to me. So go to these 3 people. Take my word for it. Every one of them has something wonderfully in common and something wonderfully unique. And that's why I've brought this together, because, all you guys watching here and gals watching here today, you're one of my 10. This is how Anthony Darkstone, is trying to give back. The golden age of mentoring. What a wonderful phrase Jay came up with. Golden age of mentoring. Golden age of mentoring. I love it. It's got a nice ring to it. What does it mean? It's really simple. We're in a golden age. Okay. How are we in a golden age? We can sit here with a camera and talk to 500 to 1,000 to 3,500 people at the same time. And I went, holy shit, yeah, that is a golden age. Grab it. I don't care who you are, what your level of magic is, or how good you are at something. This is the golden age. Grab it. Talk to one of these people. So there's a lot of things you can learn collectively. Let me jump back, in fact, to any one of you. Pick up the lead, either one. Kent and Serena. Kenton, I know, has, would I be right in saying, a ton of stuff from DVDs to books to all kinds of things?
Yeah, something like around 50 some manuscripts and books when I quit counting. They are compiling one into Kenton Principles right now, which is a book about that big.
Wow.
That they're finishing editing. So hopefully in the next 30 days, that'll be out. But I wanted to say, this is the experience is wonderful. Experience tells us a lot, and when you're working, like Serena's saying, at the bar, things happen, right? Things happen. And the more you experience life performing, the more you realize, oh, well, I better have a solution to that. Where mentors are useful is, maybe you're really creative and you can always come up with your own solutions, and that's great. But where mentors are helpful is, oh, you have this problem. You don't know what to do about that. Let's talk. I'll give you one example because it became an important thing for me. I was working. Most people don't realize this. I spent a lot of my life doing close-up as a job for a very long time. And I was working at a restaurant in a high-end area here with some celebs and things for many years, all over a decade. And one night I walked onto the patio. There was a group. I was about to leave, but there was a group at the end of this patio that was waiting to get in. And they said, oh, come over and do something. I went, fine, sure. I never said no. This person was obviously fairly drunk, but she was the head of the table and she wanted to pick a card. And I said, great. She goes, no, give me the deck and let me pick it myself. Fine, what do I care? Fine, go ahead and pick it yourself. She goes, no, turn around because I want you peeking. And I went, well, again, don't care, fine, right? So I turned back around, she goes, okay. And now she's chewing a wad of bubble gum and she's going, so what is it? And I went, well, okay, just put it back in the deck somewhere. She goes, well, where's the deck? I said, I don't know, where is the deck? In your purse. She goes, oh, that's pretty good. Yeah, there's the deck. I put it in my purse. I said, okay, did you put the card back? And she goes, no. So what's my card? I'm figuring I'm going to card count. She grabs the deck, holds back onto it. She goes, so what is it? And I'm thinking, and I've had enough experience. And I said, well, I'm too polite. I can't really say where it is. And she went, "Oh, that's impressive." And she reached into her bra and pulled out half of a card. And she said, "Where's the other half?" And she went and pulled out the other half that she'd been chomping on. She bit it in half. And I said, "Well, it's going to be pretty easy to find again now, isn't it?" And that was it. But I thought, okay, I have to have a solution for this. I had card indexes, I had all sorts of stuff. I could have counted all these things. That's why Colossal Killer exists, because I had to have a solution for those situations. And fortunately, I had a mentor. He wouldn't want to be called. He was always giving me crap about that and would rather just say he was a friend because we go way back. But Larry Becker said to me, "Kenton, that's pretty cool, but you need to change a little bit of the wording. One number off, it could be confusing. Why don't we change it to off by one? And by the way, this magic word project thing you teach students," he goes, "you need to show that to me because I don't think some of your examples are clear." So Larry was, in a very subtle way, kicking my butt behind the scenes all the time. And that's how you got Colossal Killer and Wonder Words to come out into the public. If it wasn't for Larry Becker, that would not have happened. So you never know how your mentors are going to show up and do something for you that challenge you to make you do something. And experience is certainly a part of that. Jay was mentioning our dear friend and mentor up in Las Vegas, and Johnny and I was at Johnny and Pam's house with Eugene and a bunch of people. We were having dinner one night, and after a while, everybody sat down by Pam's end of the table, and Johnny and I were raging about the state of mentalism. And really our comment was, what we were so upset was the people were just saying, well, people are worried about being bold now. And he goes, "Mentalists are afraid to be bold." He goes, "Kenton, what the hell is wrong? What is that?" And I said, "John, how did you grow up?" He goes, "Well, I worked behind the bar. I did magic here. I said, "Right, exactly." He said, "So as a mentalist, if you're working behind the bar and you have to make a bar of like a bottle of fifth appear of something," I said, "How do you do that?" And we both simultaneously mind like taking like a bar napkin, right? And we had a bar napkin and like wiping off the table and went, "There it is. That's how you do it," And we both mimed this thing at the same exact time because we knew what you did is you reached under the bar well, you grabbed it with your fingers and you masked it and pulled it up. It's a da-da, and people flipped out. You learn from people who've been around the block how to get by with things, to do it much more directly, much easier than doing all this fancy nonsense that you don't have to do. And when you get to that level, then you can do things that look very miraculous because, but mentors are people who've had a lot of experience, and you can spend another 20 years on your own to get a small piece of that, or you can have a mentor help you so that in a year or two, you have decades of experience down in a year or two. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And that's why some of my students like Peter Turner and Fraser Parker and Pablo Mira and all those guys are known because they're very creative, very ingenious, very different kinds of mentalists. They aren't me, they took a few of my principles and then I worked with them and they expanded it into whole new realms. So working with a mentor not only makes you better, it helps make mentalism and magic better as a whole. And you never know where students end up going, from there. That will change magic and mentalism forever too.
I think the underlying message here from all three of my guests is that no one person has a monopoly in your mind. It doesn't matter how creative you are. It really doesn't. It's being able to turn to someone like the example I gave you before, where her mentor said, "Go get fencing lessons." But he knew that's what was required. If you can find somebody like J. Scott Berry, he can, instead of saying to you, "Well, you need this kind of music to go with that effect and this kind of lighting, go talk to X and go talk to Y," he can actually do that. So sometimes you get a mentor who's a polymath who has a background at all of those things. Now, if you came to me and asked me about, putting up Zoom shows and things like that, as everybody knows, I'm useless at it. I'm good at what I do, certain areas. The rest of it, I kind of, my dad had a saying, and I've lived by this all my life, all 74 years of that. An expert is someone who knows when to call in another expert. I wish to goodness I thought of that. It wasn't. It was my dad. Blessings for his memory. And that's really what I'm trying to do today, and indeed my guest, is to maybe stimulate your thinking enough to go, yeah, that's it. Do you have to choose one of my three guests as your mentors? Well, the short answer is I don't know. That's entirely up to you. And actually, more to the point, it's entirely up to them whether they will take you on or not. But they don't mind, I'm sure, I'm speaking for all three of them, contacting them. They're easy enough to find, and, ask them some questions. The mentor ain't going to jump in front of you and go, hey, here I am. You got to put in the work. You got to find them. You got to go and ask them. Prepare for rejection, because they may be testing you. They may be trying to find out how good you are. Prepare for the fact that they're going to go, that's the best linking rings I've ever seen and the greatest double lift. And you know what? Ditch it, because it's no good for you. This is what you should focus on, because this is your personality. So let me just kind of get Jay to amplify on that a little bit, if I may. So throw it over to you, Jay.
Thank you, Anthony.
Sure.
Look, again, everything. I just second everything you're saying, everything Serena's saying, and Kenton. And I'll point out that Kenton is also a very talented musician. So
yes.
the different aspects that we can bring into teaching and mentoring. Now, I'll give you just a real short story that sort of wraps up this whole idea of the golden age. So 26 years ago, I got contacted, this is before the internet, you go way back, I got contacted by a young man in Luxembourg. And he said, look, I understand you've worked with Richard Ross, you've worked with Pavel, would you please come and work with me? So I had to draw. He paid me. A few times he drove to me. I was living in Germany, but the distances traveled. Basically, we went back and forth over a number of sessions over about a year. His initial thought, he says, I want to win FISM. And the first thing I said, well, why? FISM is not an end, it's a stepping stone to what? So part of it was breaking down his great dream and saying, okay, let's really think this out. Do you want a show that's commercial, or do you want a show that's going to win FISM? And again, along the way, I worked with him, developed and tried to give him a sense of direction, gave him attitude, costuming, all these different pointers. And then once we produced the festivals in Scotland, I brought him on as one of the performers. So it's opening up the doorways to opportunities. When that mentee was ready, I said, okay, you're ready. Now we're bringing you into the spotlight. And meanwhile, he was developing his own professional work and his own professional touring around Luxembourg and in Europe. And lo and behold, that man is David Goldrake, who has now gone all the way to being one of the headliners in Las Vegas. So had he not made that point to contact me 25 years ago and bring me in, had he not, like with, I'll say, to Johnny Thompson and these others, had I not made the effort he tracked me down, exactly what you're saying. I didn't find him. He found me. He made a concentrated effort to say, look, I'll pay your fuel. I'll make sure you have a hotel to come to Luxembourg. I just really want to learn with you and, be your mentee. And there we go. Now we've had someone else who's taken that all the way to being a headliner in Las Vegas and now influencing others. It's passing that torch on. That is so important. And I used to look up to Johnny Thompson and Patrick Page and these others and realize how magnanimous they were with their spirit in helping. And as you said, it wasn't it was not a fee that was charged. It was about returning to your original idea of paying it forward. It's the idea that Taoist parable of saying that I was given so much, I acknowledge and recognize that something happens when you come of age as a true mentor, that you recognize the responsibility to pay it forward and recognize the responsibility of give all of that back to the art and keeping up the enthusiasm in your performance, and so always striving for personal excellence, but really using that as the example to help others strive for their own excellence.
I think this is a good point in our discussion to ask you to elaborate a little bit on an acronym that you have, which is ACE, A-C-E.
Thank you. I'll keep it brief. This is an idea. We all have our rituals, kind of our preparation and rituals, I think, leading up to a show. And I was in theater shows. This goes back to when I was 7 years old. I was brought in as a professional into a professional play as a child actor. So I got to experience the prep, the planning, the lighting, the sound, the blocking, the rehearsals, all the layers and steps of discipline leading up to the show. And then, of course, grand opening night. And it was this indelible impression. And what I watched was the actors and how before the show, we're all in one big dressing room, and I watched how they transformed. You know, when you're at the early rehearsals, you're just kind of playing and having fun. Then you get down to dress rehearsals. And then by the time of show, I watched them they transformed themselves. They became the character. So over the years, I've not only developed that myself, but I've worked with hundreds of other performers and watched how they've mentally prepared to go on stage, how we transform our consciousness from the street guy who just whatever happened on the way to the theater to that moment of entering the sacred arena of the stage. And that's where I came to ACE. And it's attitude, charisma, enthusiasm. And it's like, that's the three things. I have this absolute ritual before every show, every lecture, every Zoom presentation. It's like attitude. You shift your attitude. No matter what happened leading up to it, whatever happened in your daytime life, you got a ticket on the way to the show. It doesn't matter. You know, shift your attitude. Get to that peak performance attitude space. Charisma, you turn it on. Now, the best example I have of this is Albert Goshman. Another one who I had just brilliant memories of working with and learning from. And this guy you would never describe him as a handsome man, but obviously incredible magician, great comedian, but he had oozing with charisma. You just loved the guy. Well, you see tapes of him now, and the charisma just translates right across the screen over all the years. So, and it's a learned thing to crank up charm and charisma for the stage. It's part of the act. It's part of your development of the character. So you step into that state of charisma. And then enthusiasm. Simple. Do you want to be there or not? I ask myself every single time. I said, do you want to be here? Resoundingly, yes. And I remind myself, every rehearsal I've ever done, every show I've ever done, every failure I've ever made, every success I've ever had leads to this moment. This moment right now, whether it's a Zoom show, whether it's a live show, this is what it's about. The audience doesn't care. It doesn't matter what reviews I got last week, if I bombed last week, if I succeeded. Everything is about this moment of the performance. And that's right, it's cranking up the enthusiasm, which comes from the Greek word entheos, which means the spirit or the God force, this spirit force pouring out from within. And those are the three keys that I just pull all together. And so I hit the stage or hit the performance with all of those at full speed.
Well, to get that psyche inside, that's what the mentor does. How does that apply to mentoring and magic? Well, you can jump out there on stage and do whatever you think you're doing great. But if you have not had an analysis of how that audience perceives you, it doesn't matter if they're doing that. It doesn't necessarily mean they like you when they do that. I call it the golf clap. Yeah, I know this is what my guests are trying to do. Oh God, I wish we had tons and tons of time to analyze and jump into it. Now, here's what I'd like to do. So I think this would be a good time, if we may, to just kind of like open up the chat or your mics
Anthony,
Yes, Serena, please go ahead.
while we're waiting for them to start coming with some questions in chat, can I just share a little something?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to pick up where I left off with the professor, where he tasked me to perform as Houdini. Well, I waited like 12 years before I actually started doing it because I had to build my confidence, I had to build my repertoire as I was going along. I had been performing before that, but you know, on a semi-professional level, monetarily and also skill-wise. So as I was going along, 10, 12 years later, somehow on this project I'm working on, I brought on the teachers of Jeff McBride and Eugene Berger to help me with this project. And through that, they became friends. They were my teachers. I look at both of them as my mentors. And going through that experience with them just gave me so much volumes of experience and information to take the knowledge and expand myself as a magical performer. And then I got the opportunity to produce Jeff McBride here in Milwaukee. And spending 4 days behind the scenes with Jeff was like show doctors, but in reality. And whenever I go back and read that book, it's like, oh yeah, that's what he was doing there. Oh yeah, that's what he was doing there. So I gained that experience. And now, if any of you want to look this up, look up Serena Stone, Orange Glass. That should get you to it somewhere on Facebook. And it's an effect that I came up with during my slow time at the Magic Bar. And after I recorded it once and I recorded it and I sent Jeff a copy of the Orange Glass, and Jeff said, "Can you teach that to me?" So that there showed me, and I felt so good, but it showed me how the whole circle can go around to taking the teachings that he had given me and Eugene had given me and my other mentors and bring it around and present something to him where it was something that he wanted to learn from me. So I think that's what we all want to do as mentors, is to take the person that we're working with, the mentee, the protege, and put them in a position where they're our peers. We're no longer their mentors per se, but they are now our peers. And I think that's where we go with that part where I say I want to get them to the point where they no longer need me.
Fully understood. Yeah. That's great. Thank you for sharing that. And obviously, you know, you've mentioned Jeff, whom we all know and hung out with, etc. And yeah, I mean, what can you say? I mean, he's been there, he's done that, he's a good mentor. Absolutely. Sometimes, not always, sometimes, dear Abby, who's actually more a friend of mine than Jeff's, I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean it in a good way, because we're kind of more tuned to more esoteric things, etc. Who incidentally, she's a brilliant magician. If you've not seen her work, you should. A brilliant dancer. I can praise her from now. I refer to her as my sister friend. She's just an amazing lady. But you know, all these people, she's quietly in the background helps so many people. Yeah, myself included. I remember, well, I can't remember where it was, we were doing something or whatever, and she was also in the cast, and she turned to me and went, "Turn a little bit to the left." That's all it was. Turn a little bit to the left. And I've done it ever since. Yeah, I've done this like my signature thing. I've done it 1,000 times. She goes, "Turn a little to the left." That's it. I think what my guest was saying, it's not the sort of Socratic and Plato relationship. Well, it is, but it's also more like friends. Sometimes mentoring can be over a cup of coffee. And mentoring, as Jay has rightly said, this is the golden age. Grab it, grab it. You know, book a Zoom session with Kenton, with Serena, with Jay, whatever. You know, book a series of sessions. Grab it. Am I plugging them? Well, absolutely. Why the hell else do you think I brought them on this show? Quite frankly, because that's my giving back. I want to share these folks with everybody else.
I'm happy to jump in,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Anthony. I'm happy to jump in. I see Ralph's question, which is very poignant. And I'll precede it just slightly, but I'm going to get to your question, Ralph. This is good. Now, you mentioned that was a perfect example. Sometimes just the simplest change, say, turn your head, do this. And with Rod, he'll say this, so much of now what we've gone into fine-tuning choreography with Rod Chow's show. And I go back to when I was working, building up to my FISM competition, when the Magic Castle chose me to represent them at FISM. One of the first things I did was hired a choreographer, a dance instructor choreographer. And I took a lot of heat. A lot of people, a lot of people dissed me and everything else. Oh, you're dancing and this and that. Well, guess what? That was one of the reasons I took one of the medals, was because of the detail of the choreography. And I knew the precision and the timing and learning angles of the, movement. And that's what I'm passing on with Rod. We're getting down to the fine tuning of when something appears, not to go too far, not to turn your head, and it takes a director to do that. I mean, it takes another eye. No matter how good you are, as you said, some of the top actors in the world, top performers in the world, they'll take on a top director. So I think these are all really valid points that you're making, Anthony, as well as Serena and Kenton. Really valuable. Now, to Ralph, I want to come all the way around to that. Look, we are in a very unique age. The Chinese saying of "May you live in interesting times" keeps coming around. And look, my attitude is turn crisis into opportunity. No matter what, guess what? We're faced with challenges. Well, let adversity fuel your determination. And yeah, that we all went into lockdown last year. When we went into lockdown, I produced a whole library of digital downloads and really put things that I had put on hold. I had all these things. Well, one day I'm going to do this. Realize, well, this is the day. You got to seize the day. So just like with Kenton, you say, well, Kenton, we've produced a lot of material that now we can draw upon and help with other performers. But my advice, absolutely, is that to be prepared for both. I mean, perfect example in Australia, we opened up here a little bit last October, so I was able to keep the momentum. So don't lose the momentum as a performer. Be ready when the phone rings. Whatever they want you to do to the best of your ability, do it. That's just generally as a professional advice. I had a really strong run of shows from January through June, and then we went into full lockdown. And now we are in absolute, once again, I watched my entire show calendar of live shows evaporate. And the second time was like, you're not fooling me again. I was investing all this year and part of last year into this Zoom studio to be able to take on the best of both. And to now, literally every show I book, I put a contingency right up front. Say, look, if for some reason we're locked down, you get one of the world's top Zoom shows. And so they set up right away. It's not an afterthought. From the very get-go, I say, I will be available to come do your live show. If for some reason there's any issues, I will be there via Zoom, fully prepared and professional Zoom show. So it's, adapting. The survival of the fittest isn't about the fastest or the strongest. It's the ones who are about able to adapt to the current situation. And again, this is one of the strongest advices I'm giving to everyone I'm working with, whether it's through my lectures or otherwise. So yeah, great question, Ralph. It's Ralph, working shows. Yeah, virtually. There we go. So Tom sort of echoed that as well. So.
Well, I think, I never make predictions off stage. I think that's kind of stupid to do that. However, a certain amount of intelligent analysis can't hurt. If we look at it and we see that there are conglomerates who are now going, hey, we don't have to spend a ton of money on people traveling. We can actually have meetings with our companies in Singapore, in Holland or London or wherever, and we can do that for a fraction of the cost of having everybody get on a plane and hotel rooms, etc. They're now going, and I know this from very close friends in the business, I'm not going to mention their names, they're actually working harder providing corporate gigs. A couple of the smart ones, it's a husband and wife team, really smart ones, kind of went to the corporate people and said, instead of waiting until the end of the year or whatever, every time you finish a meeting, how about we've, kind of finish it off with 20 minutes or half an hour show. And they went, oh, that's a great idea. Say, hey, would you like to book 6 of them? Yeah, great. Then I got bookings going into next year via Zoom. Win-win. They don't have to pack tons of stuff and go anywhere. You really don't. Guess what? You're still getting the same fee, but you haven't got all the travel expense. So it's kind of looking beyond. It's the kind of things you need to be able to do. Call me up or call Jay or Kenton or Serena or somebody else of that ilk and kind of go, hey, what do I do? I've got this. How do I do that? Should I do that? I've just landed the gig. It's not much. It's only about $300, but it's like showing up every Friday at this restaurant. Should I do it? Now, a good mentor will analyze everything and either say to you, you know what? Don't. What? Money? I got to pay my bills. Well, of course, everybody's got to pay their bills, but it's back to that investment again. You can't know everything because you can't see beyond I've just got $300 a show for 4 shows. Hey, that's $1,200 I never had. Think business. It's very important. Yeah, but I'm not a pro, Anthony. I'm just like an amateur. I love magic and I just do a few things. Well, great. You want to improve? Well, yeah. Well, guess what? This is how. It's that simple. We're not going to preach the same, gospel over and over. It really is that simple. Get in touch with one of these 3 people. Ken, go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say, there over the years, I think we've all heard hobbyists and amateurs say, but I'm, come on, I don't need to have a mentor. I don't need to be that serious. And it's like, but are you putting yourself out there as a magician or a mentalist? If you are acting like a paid person, whether you are or not, and that reflects on everyone else. So yes, you do need to invest in yourself enough to, to do what you do well. You might only do 2 tricks. That's fine, as long as you do them well. But the minute you do, well, I bought 12 tricks today at the store, and I have a show next week, and so I think I'm going to put them together. The minute you go out and do that, you're hurting every single person who's trying to eke out a living doing what you're doing. So listen, it doesn't have to be, look, my time is like full. So I'm very, very picky about how many students I work with right now because of my time being what it is. And I grew up with mentors who said, you make a commitment to me and I'll make a commitment to you. So I asked for that too. But listen, even if you only, say, hey, I'll book, an hour to talk to Jay or to Serena or me, just to get an idea about where I'm heading, that's fine. That's better that you do that than to go out and just try to fake it. Because you will hurt yourself in the long run big time by going out and faking it with a few tricks you're kind of half doing, as opposed to doing one trick really well. Like Jay pointed out, Vernon used to say all the time, I don't care, just do one thing, do one thing really well, do it, that's all, just one thing. The professor had several things that he did really well. And if you ever saw him do Symphony of the Rings or whatever, I get it, right? But that was the thing. You would say nobody else can do that way. Richard Ross, same thing. You saw The Rings. Nobody's going to do that way.
Right.
That's what you want to do. So look, even if you're doing one simple card trick, or if you just bought a cool prop at the magic shop, you can still take that thing and have it be really powerful and meaningful. And you can just do the one trick. So don't sell yourself short by thinking, I'm just a hobbyist, it doesn't matter. It matters. I'll say this quickly. I had one student once, this many years ago, thank goodness, and he certainly changed his mind. But he said to me, he had worked in a class that I used to do, and he said, I'm going to quit doing classes because I'm just not that serious about it. I just want to go off and like do some shows and make some money, but I'm not that serious. And I went, tell me what your dad does for a living again. And he said, well, he's a surgeon. And I went, boy, I hope he doesn't have that same attitude. And that ended that because, hey, if you just want to go out and, hire yourself out for a few things, you are now acting like you're a professional, and you need to think about that.
You're right. I've had people come up to me and go, yeah, well, I don't work stage magic. I do restaurants. That little space that you have there between the people eating and you standing or whatever, that's your stage. Blocking, kinesics, all these things, right, matter, even if you're doing that. If it's just rubber bands on your fingers jumping from two fingers to the other, that's your stage. Learn from people like Gashman, who understood kinesics brilliantly. You watch his tapes, his YouTube stuff. He's like down here when he's working. The two volunteers are up here. Read David Attenborough, How Animals Work, and children. Children, if they want something from another, will lean to one side, take a more subservient body language pose. So do chimpanzees. Albert Gashman, I have no idea if he read up on this or whatever. He just did it. So automatically the two people were there. And some of the most classic misdirection, just happened. And speaking of do one trick and do it well, we have many examples, but I'll tell you one that springs to mind. It's a good pal. He's in our International Assembly and a former IBM president. And that's Michael Finney. Years and years and years. He's made a fortune with a freaking card on his forehead.
That's right.
That's it. That's it.
I'd like to mention too that it's we feel as human beings that we know what we're doing and what we're not doing, and that we can see pretty much everything that's going on. Not everything, but most things. So the obvious things, we can catch that part. And so this whole time while we've been talking, I've been playing an experiment to put in your subconscious to see so that you would remember that we don't see everything. And that is, if you go back and watch this video over and over, you'll see the ring on my hand has disappeared and come back on probably 25, 40 times by now. We don't see these things. We just don't. Our minds, understandably, our brains have filters to consciously put things in there, so we don't see everything. And then once somebody else points it out, you go, oh, that's painfully obvious. Yeah, but you have to have somebody point it out from the outside. We don't necessarily see it on our own. That's why I was playing with, in case anybody happened to catch it. I seriously doubt most people did, but in case anybody catches it, that's what that was about. To make sure your subconscious recognizes, oh, I've got to pay attention to lots of little details. And sometimes I need outside help to do that.
Well, they're tiny little things, just very, very quickly, and then I want to really for you guys to ask some questions to my guest. I don't recall his name. It'll probably come to me after the show. But a very famous psychologist made some wonderful experiments to do with cognitive dissonance and cognitive abilities, et cetera, et cetera. And one of them, I think you can find them on YouTube. I'm not sure. I think you can. Is where there were different things happening and then questions were asked. Yes. What was the color of the horse? That kind of stuff. And one of them was absolutely stunning. It was in the middle of a show of some kind. There was a guy in a gorilla suit who walked to the back as the show was happening. I think some of you will know that. Guy wearing a gorilla suit just walked from, stage left to stage right. Boom. Nobody noticed it till he then asked the questions. So Kenton is so right. People notice these things.
Thank you. I'll jump in. I'm going to pick up. I know we're sort of wrapping up. I think each of us, I think Serena should probably have a chance for final thoughts as well.
Sure.
Again, echoing everyone, thank you very much to Scott, to Rod. I want to actually give a quick shout out to Sharon Drysdale. She's from Trinidad. The first time I seen her. Now she attended all of my The Art of Wonder web series last year. So whether she considers me mentor or not, we've definitely had a lot of conversations, and just simply, again, it's kind of sharing that inspiration. So it's great to see you, Sharon. Thank you for joining us. Really, just a quick shout out all the way from Trinidad, this beautiful world of magic. So the point I'm going to make is picking exactly what you said, Anthony, and also Kenton, is that I think I have this real solid theory that I apply, that anyone who doesn't like magic has probably never seen good magic. Simple as that. In fact, they've probably seen bad magic, and that's created the impression. Okay, I think we can all agree with that. It's like, and often the question comes up in groups and something, you're roving, especially strolling magic, because you're dealing directly with that little theater space. You walk into their space and, introduce myself. Thank you very much. Would you like to see a bit of magic? And the question is, you're breaking the ice, and they say, every once in a while you get someone who says, I don't like magic. And you see this knee-jerk reaction. And that's a very difficult thing to deal with. It took me a while to work that out. And finally I said, well, really? They say, I don't like magic. And I say, I understand exactly what you mean. And they're like, what? I say, yeah, it's like guacamole. And they're like, what? They're like, all of a sudden you engage and they laugh. One person at the table, like, yeah, it's like guacamole. If you eat 2-day-old guacamole that's brown and layered over, if you ate that and that was your entire impression of guacamole, everyone hates that. Come on, that's awful, right? And I said, that's probably like the magic you've seen. They're like, well, I don't know. I said, but if you have fresh made guacamole, where it's been opened and freshed and spiced and lemoned, and by that point they're like salivating, you literally get them going. And I say, that's the type of magic you should be seeing. So would you like to see some magic like that? And all of a sudden, I've taken it, an adversary, and shifted it to, I've joined their side and said, let me show you something more like fresh guacamole. And it's just this funny concept that's real down to earth and playful, and it has never failed me. It's to immediately turn someone you could either say, you could walk away, you could get upset, you could go, whatever. It's like, no, I'm going to do my best to turn this person and actually change one mind about magic. And hopefully at the end of the little 3, 5, 10-minute table performance, they now will no longer say, I don't like magic. They'll realize that it is about the magician. And that's exactly what I'll go back to Kenton. And he said, the moment you go out there, you're representing the art. You're going to make an impression for good or for not. For better or for worse, we are all responsible for the impression we make when we go out and call ourselves magicians.
The toughest magic, there are a lot of tough magics to do. Street magic, etc. But, basically working gigs in a restaurant, for my way of thinking, I've done a couple, but I'd rather not, because I'm not skilled at it. It's very, very difficult, particularly in the situation that Jay has just spoken about. The point I'm trying to make is, you're not there to do a show. You work in that restaurant because somebody is paying you to entertain people while they're waiting for their food. That is your prime job. You need to know how to do that. You need to have a mentor teach you how to do that. You can't just go, whoa, this is my gig. I'm appearing every Friday night at, Charlie's, hamburger joint. And yeah, this is, plastered all over Facebook. No, you're not. Somebody at Charlie's hamburger joint is paying you some money so you can help him make some money in his restaurant. So you can cover for disasters in the kitchen. You can do anything. You can work maybe 3 or 4 tables at the same time. That's when he's going to book you. That's when you're going to elevate the art. That's when you're going to help somebody else, 20 miles down the road doing the same thing, where people will go to that restaurant the following week and think, oh, we saw this magician. He's great. Would you like to see some magic? Yeah, I'd love to. See the difference? You've helped some guy or gal that you don't know anything about. Good pal, also a member of our assembly, great magician. John O'Riordan, I've just gone through the chat. I've just had a chance to look at it. John made a good point. I'll just read what he wrote. Mentoring also has a great deal to do with students' anxiety. And that can happen a lot. I've got to the point where I'm not anxious. I don't have stage fright in anything. There are people, no matter how good they are, I won't name names, but I know somebody who was on a live talk show with me in Israel. I mean, a super big name, seriously big name. And it took me about 10 minutes to figure out that he was nervous. And then I realized, in fact, we're going through the pre-show stuff, talking with him, he was a bag of nerves. And this was somebody who, when you watch him, has got the most commanding presence ever. So yeah, John was talking about it. I mean, before we kind of wrap up, we'll take another couple of questions. Would you, Serena, Jay, or Kenton, like to say something about what dear John O'Riordan just said about helping students or mentees deal with anxiety?
I think Jay had mentioned it earlier. You know, some of the prep right before you go out to do anything is really important, so that you are grounded and present and have energy to share with people. I remember talking to Eugene many years ago before Wonder Words came out, and we were talking about how some of the greats in Magic really did stand behind the curtain and send out vibes to everybody and just say, I love you, I love you. And Eugene said to me, oh, Kenton, I never do that. Anytime I do that, they turn on me. But, you know, for the most part, we all have a way of connecting with people and a way of calming ourselves down. And we've done it long enough, we kind of take that for granted, of that's just, we kick into those gears. But when you're new, you don't have that. And that is something mentors, definitely can help you do. One of the simplest things is to breathe. We are all get very bad about not breathing. We're getting excited and we breathe way up here, and the next thing we know, we're about ready to pass out. So just taking a few deep breaths can make a big difference. I always tell students, I always say to students, where are your feet? And they laugh, but they understand that means feel the bottom of your feet. Because most people, when we get excited, we forget where we are. We're not in the present moment, and we're not very grounded. And so if you have to feel your bottom of your feet, you realize, oh, I'm here. I'm right here right now. My feet are here. I'm grounded. And that takes care of it. But yes, we all have that. And I think we all need little help and techniques so that we have our rituals, as Jay says, that we're ready to go, because we know we're going to slip here, here, and here. And now we're done. We're ready for it. If I'm going out, and sitting at a big grand piano and it's all on my shoulders for the next hour and a half or two, if I'm coming out there going, that's it. I'm already dead before I play a note. On the other hand, if I go out there and go, this is about me transforming everybody in the audience, that's my position. So every key I play is about that. That changes how I'm going to feel. So we always want to have our own kind of set ideas about what we're up to, and focus more on other people. If we focus solely on ourselves, we could get nervous. If we focus on them, it changes the whole way we feel.
I think the key word there that you've used is breathe. Anybody who's done any type of, yoga or exercise or martial arts or whatever understands that entire concept. I mean, one of the things that I tell people in the workshops, etc., is just take your middle finger and push on your solar plexus a couple of times, breathing in and out. I go, what? Try it. I'm not saying it's a placebo that cures everything. And people have, and they've come back and go, oh, that's good. Does it work? I don't really know. But what it does do is focus them on a point of which they're focusing. You can't get nervous and anxious if your mind is incapable of holding two emotions at the same time. It's like you can't be angry if you're laughing. And, if you're focusing on something here, you can't focus on the anxiety emotion. And that creates a whole sense of different body chemistry and chemicals, which we won't go into here. But these are all the things that mentors do.
Yeah, thank you for a fantastic night tonight. It was wonderful to talk about mentoring and the experiences. And I think all youngsters, all people coming into magic and entertainment would benefit by listening to words of wisdom tonight. So thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, John. As everybody can see, John, he's not exactly 27 years old. He's been in the business a long, long time, and I happen to know that he has a number of proteges and students, etc., along the years, some of them in a more informal way. So I'm very honored that John took the time to come and join us tonight and to say a few words. If you want to see more of John, come watch the gala show on the 29th. He's in the cast, as is Alan Fisher. I'm trying to see who all else is here. Oh, Dr. Joel's in the cast. Yes, Austin Moody's in the cast. I want to say something from a lady I've never met. Her name is Sharon Drysdale, and I kind of like. Oh, it's gone in the chat. Oh no, here it is. She says, "Thank you, everyone. All the information given is very good and helpful." And Jay, yes, you are my mentor to me. You are a mentor to me. How very nice. Thank you, Sharon. That was really nice of you to take the time to write that. Really, really good. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we really need to wrap so everybody can, take a...
First of all, I want to thank you, Anthony, for putting together this outstanding Darkstone dossier. I mean, this is, like you brought in 3 incredible, exceptional people here that have been mentees, and now they're mentors. And we learned so much. The Golden Age of Mentoring is such an appropriate title that you explained that Jay came up with. But I say that this presentation today is timeless, okay? You can go back and watch this over and over again, and you can learn and learn. Meeting Kenton, actually, Kenton, I bought your tapes maybe 30 years ago. They're in the cassette, a big folder, binder, like 6 on each side, and I have those cassette tapes, and they're in Wonderwords, so that's amazing. And to see you in person now, because of the Golden Age, it's so great, it's so great. And then Serena, we had opportunity to welcome you to the SAM International Assembly, which is so good that you're a part of that now, and we're going to see more of you, of course. And of course, Jay Scott Berry. We've known each other for 30 years, but to come back together again after all this time, and actually owing to Anthony for actually inviting you as a lecturer on as part of the International Assembly lecture series. And then this is where we reconnected again, and I learned so much from you at that lecture. Especially what actually resonated with me was what you just explained right now, ACE, attitude, charisma, enthusiasm, and it makes so much sense. And in your mentoring of me here to get my act to this pinnacle. And your new slogan of which I saw on Facebook, which was peak performance digitation. And it makes so much sense that you're going to take someone and just get the ultimate out of that person, so that person can actually give that his or her peak performance. Thank you all on behalf of the Society of American Magicians for coming here today.
You're very welcome, Rod.
Anthony.
Yes, PJ, please. Yeah,
Thank
well,
you,
how are you? Nice
It's-
to see you.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to be here. You guys, it keeps me connected to my SAM family in a way that I could never hope to have done in person. So I love this whole environment that we're living in, even though we chose not to be here if we would have had a choice. And to Rod's point, the first time I met Rod Chow, he was competing in the close-up competition at an SAM. And he has continued to blossom through the decades. And it is so wonderful because I started, my first SAM convention was so many years ago, and I got to see the finest in our craft back then and watched through the decades and learned through the decades, and you never stop learning. You never stop learning. And thank you all so much for a wonderful session.
PJ has been in that family, and it's wonderful to have you with us and in the assembly, of course. He's absolutely brilliant, Alan, at this. He gave a wonderful lecture. He's going to be in our gala show as well. If you click on that link, it says International Assembly. Go to it, read everything that's there, scroll down to the photos and have a look of who we've got in that assembly. You get an amazing notables. Thank you, Alan, for doing that. Very much appreciated. And of course, yes, the Facebook Academy of Illusions, which Jay has just put up, are something you should go and have a look at, because I happen to know there's some pretty stunning stuff happening there. And it's going to start getting better. So if there's no more questions or somebody wants to say a little something, I think I will just turn it over to my guest to say a final couple of sentences. So, Serena, over to you.
Me.
Yes, you.
Well, I want to thank you so much for inviting me to this, Anthony. And Jay and Kenton, was wonderful doing this with you. I think my favorite part was the puppet jam we did in our first combo talk when we all got together.
Yeah, I know. We did. Yeah, what she's referring to is that I'm one of these meticulous people. Some people go, "Oh God, you're so anal." I prefer the word meticulous. It's how I know, and that's how I know showbiz, right? So I like to talk to my guests. I like to talk with them. I do a lot of research and so on. It doesn't just switch on a Zoom friggin' camera and just chat whatever comes into your head. I've done this hosting for a few years, live and otherwise. Yeah, you're talking about these things turning up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all went a little berserk with those. Yeah.
And
the chicken.
The last thing I wanted to say was get involved with a mentor if you're in magic and you want to be creating some money, because otherwise the money just disappears.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Okay.
We had to
Kenton?
do some magic, didn't we?
Well, yeah. Kenton, sir.
It's been wonderful to be here with friends, and to catch up again. Sometimes our schedules are so whacked. Things like this is how we catch up. So it's great to see Serena and my friend Jay. We go back a ways. And Anthony, thank you so much for pulling us all together and working our schedules out to do this. It was wonderful to be with everybody today, and hopefully we've given you a little taste of what we're up to and why we care about students. And when we take them on so sincerely, because it just changes everything in magic and mentalism. And you might think, well, I'm just one person, what does that matter? It can matter a great deal of difference to the world of magic and mentalism. Even if you're only doing a few tricks, you never know how you might change somebody's life by what you do with magic and mentalism. So hey, have fun with it, enjoy it, but take it just enough seriously that you also respect it. Respect is a big thing. And if you really respect what you're doing and respect yourself, do yourself a favor and get a mentor, no matter who it is, somebody that you also respect. Thank you for being with us.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Kenton. They're very powerful and moving words, but then again, you're Kenton Nepper. I would expect nothing less. Last of all, to my good buddy and fellow wizard, really, he put these graphics and everything else, and wakes up early in the morning, and I stay up late at night, and we put this and chat and do this and change that and the music. And you know what? He's been mentoring me in a slightly different way, but yeah, I'm learning a lot. So I think it's only appropriate, seeing the amount of work that he's put in. I just tell him what to do, and he seems to sort of go off and do it. So I have the easy bit, and then he comes back with something infinitely better than the idea I first thought of. So how cool and that, and how wonderful is that for me? So basically, to my very, very good pal and buddy and brother wizard, I think I would like to leave the end words with him. Thank you, everyone, for attending. With that, thank you all. Huge thanks to my guests, needless to say, but needs saying. So, over to you, my brother wizard.
Look, through the miracle of modern technology, this is streaming live to Facebook, and as far as I know, it should be immediately available to rewatch. So we have another opportunity, and that's on the Academy of Illusions page, which I invite everyone to check out. Officially, we open on September 1st, but the Facebook page is up. Lots of things already happening. Over a dozen events are already scheduled for just September. So that's just a general shout out. So feel free to join us over there. I want to shout out quick to Spike, the wizard from Montana. Thanks for joining us. To Gene, great to see you. PJ, wonderful to see you. You basically set up for one of my absolute favorite quotes, and it's that the best thing I ever learned is to never stop learning. That's just, it's 100% true. It's like no matter where you are on the ladder, it's always about reaching for the next rung. So, Paul, you've been a great friend. Paul Goodbody, great friend for yours. Rick, of course, amazing. Ariel, John, it's great to see you. John Riordan again. Alan, you're the craziest, funniest guy I've ever known. You're wonderful. Of course, I've mentioned Broad. Scott, you're my wingman on this. He's been amazing. And Tom in Singapore. So we are circling the globe through the miracles of modern technology to produce this. So I'm going to pass this back with the final thought to Anthony, is that what we've had here are 4, not 3, but 4 great mentors. And that includes Anthony, who I also have the deepest respect for. We have lots of projects in the works on the back burner, which will all be revealed very soon. And it's my honor and my pleasure. And for me, it's all about being in service of the art.
To which, thank you. Thank you, Wizard. Acknowledgements to everybody. Thank you for being here. I think we have now come to that point where every good director says, it's a wrap.
Good night, everyone, or good
Good night,
morning,
Jay.
or whatever.
Cheers, everyone.